Hello there, this is James Winch here. I'm the Resource Development Manager for Prospect Resources here at our Mumbezhi project in Zambia. So I'm going to give a quick recap of what we achieved with our Phase 2 program in 2025 and how that set us up and teed us off for the mineral resource update that we put out in February. The update to that we did earlier this month at mid-month in May, and then what we are intending to achieve now with our Phase 3 program building upon that. So with that having been outlined, after we released that mineral resource update in February, we initiated and closed a very successful capital raising process. We raised 45 million Australian dollars to fund a 2-year workflow on the project. We've got to the stage now at Mumbezhi where we know this is a big deposit system. It's got a huge amount of potential, and to do it justice, we need to start looking at larger programs executed over longer time windows to give us the opportunity to fully do it justice. So that is the primary use in 2026 of the proceeds of the capital raises to fund our Phase 3 program. And as I say, I'm sitting here next to our third borehole that started at the start of the program, with drilling having commenced on the 12th of May. So like I say, May has been a big month for us. It's the culmination of a lot of hard work this year, building on the very hard work we did last year to get us to a point where the rigs are now turning and by the looks of it, giving some very early successes, which I've got some nice visuals here to take through at the end. So now to have a look at where we ended last year, and well, to tee in what we had actually discussed last year at about this time, I believe it was, when I gave the last video update. So if I zoom into this area now, you'll see there is the project outline in yellow, the Mumbezhi license, which is 356 square kilometers, and it's about 30 kilometers along the base and 30 kilometers north-south. The purple symbology, the light purple symbology that I'm showing here, is the key output that we had in the 2024 program, informing the Phase 2 program in 2025, which was our induced polarization studies that gave us the preliminary indication on a geophysics perspective that we were dealing with a very large system. Measuring from Nyungu South here through to Nyungu North, we had a 10-kilometer string of induced polarization chargeability anomalies. That got us very excited. We did support structural studies for that to interpret the morphology of what the regional geology was doing, as well as what the local geology at the Nyungu Central deposit was doing. And in the process of that, we engaged the services of Tect Consulting in South Africa. And you'll remember that folded feature surface that I put up on screen the last time, which became our targeting and vectoring model for the Nyungu Central deposit. So zooming into the deposit, there we are. In green now is the fold horizons, or the fold envelope of this plunging fold stack. Duplicated tight isoclinal folds stacked on top of each other, and that shows up quite nicely when you section it east-west, and you get this interpretation here where you've got big, long, sweeping fold limbs. And basically what happens when rocks deform like this under great heat and temperature over a very long time is, if you're sitting with a sheet of or a series of rock horizons and you start pushing on them, they start to buckle and they'll start to fold over and bend like plastic, as I'm doing with this paper. So they are ductile under great stress at big temperatures and pressures, and they start to deform like this. So we get this very tight isoclinal overfolding, and that's good for two reasons. Firstly, it duplicates our ore body horizons, so we get 1, 2, 3, 4 in this instance is bite of the cherry. And then Ore Genesis 101 in the fold noses, as I'm showing with this view here, where these red symbols indicate grade intervals above 0.15% on average. You get grade intervals concentrating in the noses of the fold, the closures of the fold. So there's apertures that open up in the deformation, and fluids then, the mineralizing fluids permeate along those conduits and give you high-grade enrichment or higher-grade enrichment in the noses. So from a structural perspective, we got a handle on this with the work of Tech Consulting, and we used this as a guidance model for our phase 2 program. And we said, look, okay, so that's the surfacing. Can you give us a deformation envelope within which we should look to grow this, which is now this red volume that I've got brought up around, surrounding that green folded surfacing. So we use that as our targeting model in addition to the greater structural picture. And you'll remember we were very excited last year about the bigger scale amplitude, higher amplitude folding, lower amplitude folding, apologies, hosting this, which I'm going to bring up on screen now, which is this much larger scale feature that we believe to hosted a turnover of the entire succession. And accordingly, we planned a borehole to test that. So I'm going to take that off section slicer view now, and you'll see what the larger play looked like. So there we are. There is the green is the fold envelopes, the turquoise color is the search volume within which we wanted to search at close range to grow the deposit, and then the mesh, this white lattice, was the bigger picture, lower amplitude hosting structure that we wanted to interrogate. So I'm going to do a section line again through this part of the ore body, and you'll see how that turned out for us. So turning it on its side and increasing the slice width to about 200 meters. This is what we achieved during the year. So we started the program by going back down this borehole here, which is borehole 26. From 2024, we went back down to 460 meters or so, drilled another 30 meters, and achieved these mineralized intercepts, the continuation of our ore schist horizon from the highly defined portion of the mineral body. We then stepped that back out aggressively on surface by a 500 meter step out across in that direction there, going towards the west, across the feature. We angled the rig a little bit, a slightly gentler angle to transect this IP volume to see what was in there. And we found it below the search depth, or below the cutoff depth of the survey, which was cut off at about 300 meters vertical, 400 meters vertical. And we found what we were looking for at, I'm going to measure here, at 560 meters downhole, a continuity of our ore zone across this larger scale feature, stepping out from our Nyungu Central deposit from the nearest known intercept by 300 meters immediately west across the strata of the rocks. Consequently, when we did the mineral resource update at the start of this year, the one that we announced in February, there was significant growth in the tonnages, a lot of it attributable down dip in portions coming from this one borehole. So what I'm going to put on here now is the mineralized envelopes as they have now been defined. And those are shown in yellow. So there's a lot of colors happening here right now, so let me just simplify that a bit. Okay. What you'll see now is that the yellow volume, yellow surfacing, very closely conforms to the structural interpretations. The yellow overfolding, tight isoclinal overfolding up in the east of the deposit, and then this long, sweeping, low amplitude feature. The mineral resource pulls along through that, but preferentially at a flat to up-dipping angle, coming closer to surface. Although we did this work down dip, we then got a handle on the morphology of this thrust stack. So if I take it off slicer now, here, and I tilt it into the plunge of the ore body, and I section it now obliquely through that long, deep borehole to the northwest, here you get a very revealing view of what our ore body looks like. On plunge, it's got a very gentle plunge to the northwest of about 20 degrees. So that's the first takeaway. The second takeaway is this lower amplitude fold feature hosts the higher amplitude isoclinal folding, and it comes to surface pretty much where I'm sitting at the moment out in the field where this drill rig is drilling. So that was the outcome of the drilling last year and the MRE. So that got us to the updated 174 million tons on the license, of which 151 was sitting here in this yellow volume at Nyungu Central. And then, as I say, at mid-month in May, we updated that MRE and we topped out at 204 million tons for the license area, of which 154 was then is now resident at Nyungu Central. One of the reasons for that jump from 174 to 204, in fact, the large reason behind it is the addition for the first time of a maiden resource of 30 million tons at our West Mumbezhi project to the north. I'll zoom out, go 20 kilometers up that direction, show you this IP volume here. With the boreholes that we put into it, about 11 boreholes into this IP volume. And if I put on the ore surfacing that we've defined there, showing up through there in red, you'll see there's a beautiful tabularity through those ore zones, through the center of the IP volume. And again, giving us, if I click on that, you'll see there a face dip of about 13 degrees, dipping again to the northwest. So very preferential angle of repose of the ore body, beautifully tabular, so we could take wide step outs on our drill spacing and achieve successful intercepts. And that has informed the 30 million tons that we've now maiden declared at Mumbezhi, additional to Nyungu Central and Kabakupa, which is behind me, 15 kilometers that way. And that's now given us that 204 million ton global resource at Mumbezhi. Now zooming back out, zooming back into Nyungu Central, because that's where the action is currently happening with this drill rig in the background, as you can hear. Let me turn off the IP now and show you the geophysics that we did last year. Additional to the IP. So what we flew last year was Spectrum. It's the Spectrum system, which is a heli-borne AEM, or airborne electromagnetic survey, and that picks up the conductivity of rocks in response to an energized source magnetically. So I'm going to go into plan view here, show you the entire license area, show you what that looks like. Lots of very bright colors. So reds are high magnetic response and conductivity, and cold colors, blues and greens, are low magnetic response and conductivity. So the first takeaway that gives us is anything with a low magnetic conductivity is granitic, so basement. And that's where we are at Mumbezhi, in the domes region of the northwestern copper belt. So where these big granite whalebacks, massive whalebacks, subterraneanly occur, and the mineralization horizons are sheared up and rafted over them. And there's pockets within these big basement batholiths. And that's what we have here at Mumbezhi on the license area, which I'll now trace out. So you can see the edge of the Katangan sediments wrapping around the edge of this dome. If you follow my cursor down, these high magnetic colors angling down the edge, turning sideways, inflecting up here, and then going off screen up to the northeast. In the center of the dome is what we're interested in for basement style mineralization. It's these high magnetic, high conductivity signals in the basement, in the cool colors. So if I zoom into this area here and I circle it, that is our Nyungu Central deposit. Here is our Nyungu South deposit. And fascinatingly, what's now becoming apparent is there is genuinely a Nyungu West deposit or target that is being defined by the airborne electromagnetics. Zooming back out, using those as a proxy, and you can see the boreholes in here at Nyungu Central clustered around or into that AEM anomaly. So we know it's there, we know it's valid. So if we look for the response characteristics similar to Nyungu Central elsewhere in the license, on the presumption that they are being caused by the same lithologies, which is graphitic, kyanitic, sulfide mineralized ore-schists, we see some very compelling similes. There's Mapani flies pestering me here. You see what we've defined as our Sharamba anomaly, primarily in this area here, which is a very large anomaly. It is 2.5 km long. Then you have our Chupimpa anomaly, which is a novel discovery, effectively, that we made last year with AEM's help. It's again about a 2.5 kilometer anomaly chain off to the east of the license area, and you can see the edge of Kamafamba West sticking out over here where I'm measuring, also about a 2 kilometer anomaly, as well as pockets all the way along the thrust sheets wrapping around the core of this granitic dome where I'm tracing. So that's got us very excited, particularly when we then did the three-dimensional inversion of these volumes. So this is a two-dimensional output at this stage. So it's a flat sheet with some very fancy processing and geophysics and mathematics that I don't understand, but which very smart geophysicists do. You then take this data and you apply, I think through time domaining, you apply a third dimension, a z-axis to it, and that gives you a three-dimensional volume. So with that in mind, we're going to look at it at surface level, look through the deposits. You can see there's Nyungu Central, there's in the distance West Mumbezhi, and here's the cluster of boreholes at Kabakupa. And if I go and I turn on the chargeability now, the three-dimensional chargeability from this electromagnetic survey is a very exciting output, which I'm now turning on. And you suddenly see all of these red volumes that have popped up beneath the ground level. That is the three-dimensional interpretation and extrapolation of these surface signals. So if we look here at Nyungu Central, I'm going to turn off the surface signal now and show you what lies beneath. Over here, there's our, in yellow, our mineral resource volumes, hugging and being informed by, or validating, the structural interpretation in green, all of which is perfectly correlating, back-tested now, with this volume surfacing coming up in red, which is the three-dimensional conductivity from the AEM survey. Same location, same orientation, beautifully showing the plunge continuity of this ore body from surface outcrop here, going off gently at 20 to 25 degrees to the north-northwest. Very exciting. If you turn the ore body sideways and you look at it over here, you can see there's a whole lobe or limb of conductivity that is coming out towards the east behind me and where this rig is drilling. So we wanted to get a handle on that and see what is informing it. The premise being that it's a fold nose shooting out from this isoclinal thrust stack. If I section here and show you, we'll see, we believe that it could be one of these fold lobe turnovers that we've terminated too aggressively, and it could continue and actually start to dip gently the other way. So we spent a lot of time thinking about this, designing the drill program to target the AEM volumes, not just here at Nyungu Central, but if I step back out at Nyungu South, where we've got definitive confirmation that the ore body dips to the east. You can see the 5 holes that we put into it last year that drilled in the opposite direction to the pre-existing data set. That conformed that beautifully. Zooming out, you will see our Sharamba cluster of conductivity anomalies. And then across here, our Chipimpa cluster of conductivity anomalies. And if you just look at it, broadly speaking, visually, right now, the size, the relative size of the satellite anomalies of our primary exploration targets outside of Nyungu Central, which have had very little drilling done on them. Sharamba's had 2 historical holes that just tantalizingly missed. Came very, very close to those conductivity volumes. Those are those 2 holes there, but missed it. We're going to drill about 6 holes, 7 holes into that anomaly in about August or September this year to define it and quantify it, to determine what is giving that signal. As I say, the belief is that it is conductive, kyanitic, graphitic, sulfide-bearing ore schist, as with Chipimpa off to the east behind me as well. Focusing back in again on Nyungu Central, I will then show you the drill program that we've designed around that, which is a 5,100 meter stage 1 or phase A, stage A program of our phase 3. 5,100 meters for about 16 boreholes, where our key objective at Nyungu Central is to get it to 200 million tons, at which point it is capable of supporting, what we believe, on rough metrics, a conversion to a hypothetical reserve that could sustain a 10-year life of mine at 12 million tons a year. So that's our sort of primary objective at Nyungu Central, is to achieve 200 million tons as part of our objective on the greater license area, which is to get the total endowment, the total resource combined across our Nyungu Central, West Mumbezhi, Kabakupa, to be confirmed Sharamba, to be confirmed Chipimpa targets, to get the combined tonnage inventory up to the bottom end of our exploration target range of 400 million tons, being the bottom range of our 400 to billion ton exploration target range that we put on this license area at the beginning of 2025. So we've designed our phase 3 program around that. I'm going to bring up the a simplification schematic of that series of targets. And you'll see it is a target-rich environment. You'll recognize this image from our ASX releases of the last few months. We would define in various circles and insets the targets, which if I then put up over the AEM response, you'll see that we've got our Nyungu Central sticking out clearly, our Nyungu South, our Nyungu West that's emergent, and that are very similar in signature to Sharamba and Chipimpa. What you'll also see with this image is we've got anomalies and targets up on areas that don't have a strong magnetic response, at Kabafamba, for instance, and at West Mumbezhi. So they've got IP responses, they've got geochemical responses, but they don't have an airborne electromagnetic conductivity response. Our preliminary indications, we believe, for that, it's going back to the fundamental basics of having different mineralized systems. So I'm going to bring up some PDFs here now. This is a very important academic paper from 2015 by some very renowned names working in this part of the world. And it's a short paper, it's only 8 or so pages, but it's extremely important because it gives us the dates. The initial dating that's been done on this deposit was this paper. So here's the domes region of the northwestern copper belt. Here's the Solwezi dome that hosts the Kansanshi deposit. Here's the Mumbezhi dome that hosts Lumwana and ourselves at the Mumbezhi Project off down towards the southwest. And then the Kabampo dome, the saddle between which resides Sentinel. So we go down to this table here, which just looks like numbers, but they are very important numbers. The column to focus on is this model age, which I'm highlighting with my cursor here. The Nyungu ages come out at over 1 billion years old. So this is a pre-Katangan age. This is twice the age of the Katangan mineralization that was generated during the Nephilian orogeny or mountain building episode. And those dates are what is shown at Lumwana, at the Chimiwungo deposit, clustering around 520 to 540 million years, is the Nephilian age of mineralization. And you can see, looking at some of the other dates on our license area, here's Kabakupa at around that same 500 to 540 million year date range. And here's also the West Mumbezhi deposit at exactly that same 520 million year old date range. So there's two very different age populations here, which now, if we incorporate into the rock characterization and a tectonic history of the area, a very clear and compelling picture starts to emerge. And again, as with many scientific disciplines and medicine, etc., as exploration geologists, we are generalists, and when we get a very tough problem, we defer to specialists to come and give us a specialist opinion. And again, we retain the services of tech consulting down in South Africa, in Stellenbosch. We asked Somerset West, and we asked them to come in and help us unravel what our data acquisition in phase 2 in 2024 meant. And this is what they gave us. So a very detailed description of our rocks, macroscopically similar at West Mumbezhi and at Kabakupa to Lumwana-style mineralization. A typical domes region mineralization, but then what we have got is atypical mineralization, which is our Nyungu-style mineralization, the old stuff, the billion-year-old stuff, which, if we have a look at these various images using various filters, being total copper composited, as well as other geochemical markers, as well as the AEM signal itself, shows us that we've got two distinct and separate mineralization systems. We've got Nephilian age Lumwana-style ore-schists at West Mumbezhi and at Kabakupa that have got geochemistry popping on them. They've got induced polarization giving a positive geophysical response, but they don't have graphite, and they don't have a very strong kyanite presence. Accordingly, they are not giving a strong AEM conductivity response. In contrast, we have our atypical ancient basement Nyungu style deposits at Nyungu Central, Nyungu South, emergent now at Nyungu West, and at Shiramba and at Chipimpa, where we've got positive soil geochemistry. We've got induced polarization, or will have induced polarization at Chipimpa by the end of this month, and we've got positive, very strong conductivity response in the AEM. So this is a very compelling piece of work, particularly when you look at the structural interpretation of what it means for the Nyungu corridor. So this image here on the right-hand side is a very elegant explanation for the complicated geology that we have here at Nyungu Central, where what we had presumed to be linear continuity between Nyungu South through Nyungu Central through Nyungu North is actually a huge big S-bend. The ore body comes down from the north, swings up through an S-bend through Nyungu West, swings around and down through Nyungu South. So it's on a macro scale, a folding of the entire corridor. So what we are very excited about, and you can now see that AEM showing through there, is going to go and have a look at Nyungu West on outcrop and see what we've got, because that is 800 meters over that way, and it is potentially a linkable continuity from where I'm sitting here on the southern end of Mungu Central, swinging out through over there to 4 kilometers away through to Mungu South. So with that as a backbone, we've designed our drilling program, starting here at Mungu Central with 5,100 meters of diamond drilling, which is what I'm bringing up now here in these purple hole traces. And you can see the logic behind the positioning of these holes. We want to come up dip of this fold plunge package and get as close to surface as we can, so we get shallow tons where they have not been defined, where there is no yellow MRE volume present. So you'll see we're stepping out from the known into the unknown with some fairly and progressively more aggressive step outs. This is to the west, but critically swinging around and looking to the east, we want to interrogate what's happening in this eastern lobe anomaly underneath where I'm sitting. And that is what we've managed to achieve as of our first borehole, which I'm going to turn off symbology and show you a section line through this area here, section it down to 20 meters. You'll see we're drilling in an opposite direction now, and we've gone through a 17-meter mineralized interval there, grade to be confirmed, and then transected the full extent of this AEM anomaly and have picked up multiple graphitic kinetic ore schist intervals in there. So that is telling us that the AEM interpretation is correct. I'm going to step that slicer off and now section it again through this borehole that you can hear drilling in the background, our third borehole of the program, and the second into this eastern AEM anomaly. I'll section it along this line here, and you'll see what has got us very excited as of this morning is this intercept here, currently sitting at 10 meters thick and still going, of mineralized, very well mineralized kinetic ore schists. Ox drill machine number 22, get that way, drilling away, and it has given us this core here, which I will hold up to the screen, and you'll see contains beautiful chalcopyrite mineralization surrounding very large garnets and flooded with kyanite. And if I rub this, you'll see my finger comes off black. That is the reducing agent that chopped out the sulfides. That's the graphite in the kyanite ore schist associated with mineralization throughout major sedimentary hosted copper systems. You see these beautiful garnets, and you'll see sulfide clustering into the pressure shadows of those garnets as it should. And beautiful examples that have literally just come out the run that started before I started filming this video. Over here, of very large, coarse chalcopyrite mineralization. Let's get that into the light. Over there. And again, very strong kyanite overprint from the fluids moving through this rock. A very successful start to our program. Initial indications are that our targeting and our assumptions from the geophysics are valid, and we're going to continue pursuing the AEM anomalies as vectors for our tonnage additions. You'll see in this area here where we've got the MRE surfacing, we are sitting 140 meters away in 3D space into the blue, into blue sky. And we've got a intercept happening behind me that is going to significantly extend the mineralized horizons by plus 140 meters here towards the east into an unknown, well, into a previously unknown area. For context, where that sits, I'll put it on plan view, is very close to our camp, the Mumbezhi main camp. And if I put that up on screen now, before my battery dies, you will see exactly where we are situated. So here's the ortho photo from GPS. See all the beautiful trees. There's our core shed and our camp cluster around it. And this borehole is approximately 700 meters away from camp, which is in that direction over there. So in summary, we've had a very busy 5 months in 2026 so far, building on a very successful year in 2026. And we are teeing up for a very busy drilling season here in 2026, which I'll give more updates on as it progresses. And we are very excited about what the outcomes of this will be and what it will, the resource estimate that it will inform towards the end of this year, and a potential scoping study that will ride on the back of that. So thank you very much for listening. We've got an exciting story unfolding here. I'm passionate about telling it, and we'll keep you updated as the drilling program progresses during the year. Thanks very much.